Hey, what's up, comrades? Hope you're all doing well. We're here to talk about the next game in the Shining franchise that I was able to get my hands on. And that is Shining Wind, which is a quote unquote direct sequel to Shining Tears. And I guess so. It's made by the same company, it's got the same style, it takes place in like roughly the same world. But and it plays the same. So, but aside from that, I mean, yes, it is a sequel, but I feel like calling it a sequel is like, oh, it's it's like a very loose term of the word sequel. It's kind of like Breath of Fire 2 being a sequel to Breath of Fire 1. Like, yes, that is the case. But if you're expecting like any of the recurring characters to appear for more than just kind of like be loosely associated and like the 90% of the game to just be like completely different, then like that is what you're going to get. Also, this game was never translated into English, not by Sega, not by fan translators, by nobody. So I am using the method of having Google Translate with the Japanese and English languages downloaded onto my phone, holding it up to the screen when they talk, and then describing, and then trying to like figure out like the broken machine translated English that is going on based on context clues, like what else is happening, what I can't understand, like my limited Japanese ability, stuff like that. Because it'll mistranslate like very easy words, like it'll mistranslate like brother into like sister, which is odd because because the kanji for brother and sister are completely different, but it like it's struggling to like kind of keep up. But hey, you know what? I get to play this game, and it's a little bit of a slow roll. And honestly, there's like whole sections of it that I kind of skipped. Like there's this whole thing. So the main story is very simplistic, unlike in Shining Tears, where the main story is like very complicated and there's lots of people with lots of opinions about things and lots of like stuff to understand. This, once you get past kind of like introductory stuff, like the main story is pretty straightforward. And you really don't spend that much time on it, but like where you get your bang for your buck when in terms of story is that each one of the characters that you recruit, besides the main character Kiria, he like each one of the side characters where you have like you can collect these like soul gems for them, and that unlocks like these like very in-depth detailed like background stories or just like stories about them and their relationship to Kiria, and those are very like in-depth. And so I kind of went through Hao Mei, who's like the lowly fairy, so of course that's who I went with. But I didn't want to do the rest of them. And then even hers, I kind of like, I didn't spend that much time like on the actual story. I like took glances at it essentially and got the gist of it, because this game, just with the trying to Google Translate like everything that's going on, is like, it's a real hurdle, and it's like really dragging out the process. And it becomes like, at some point I'm like, and I'm even like, I got like the cheats on for this game. So like the main character and even like Huame, who I use as like my main backup character, are like, they're just like slaughtering things. But like if I had actually played this game, like, the translating into English, even with Google Translate, it's adding like hours onto this game, because it's not like a simple process. Like I literally have to like wait for the Japanese to come up, then I hold my phone to the screen, and that can take upwards of like 10 seconds, right? Usually it's a couple seconds. It's anywhere between like 2 to 10 seconds, right? Which may not seem like a lot, but when it's a Japanese role-playing game, there's a lot of dialogue. And then the cutscenes don't have even subtitles in Japanese, because why would they, right? So, and there might be a way to turn them on, but it's like I gotta siphon through like menus with Japanese, and every time I like open the menu, I gotta like hold the phone up and wait for it to load different sections of the thing so I can figure it out. So, this story review that I do is going to be kind of like the gist of the main story, with some like added insight based on some of the few like side stories that I actually, because I do some of the side content, and there's a lot of it, which is excellent. So and like the game is better than Shining Tears in just about every way, outside the fact that it's not English. And I don't remember what her name is anymore, but that hot elf chick, there's no comparison to her in this game, not even. Like the lowly fairy is excellent as well, but not as excellent. But and there's some other hot like elf babes, but they're not nowhere even near as hot. So the game takes kind of like, the gameplay is like everything from the first game, which is Shining Tears, and it like improves upon it. So if you enjoy Shining Tears, this is like all that plus more goodness. So that's excellent. And so I'm going to assume you watched that video, which is going to be, golly, months ago at this point, because I played Shining Tears and then Shining Force Neo and then Shining Force Exa and then this. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's like a month and a half ago if you watch Shining Tears. But if you're not watching these like the day they come out, then you can go back and watch that first and kind of see the review. But it's like a Diablo style game. You kill guys, you get items. You're in different like areas. You can activate like you can clear out like these chaos gates, which is where a lot of the enemies come from. And when you clear out all the gates, you fight like the major gate, and then you can plant like a tree, and the trees let you like warp, which is an interesting concept. Like I said, the characters, you gather like gems and stuff to like power up their soul cages or whatever. The whole thing's like really rooted around like the soul and the heart, and I think they like sometimes the translation like calls them the same thing. So like the concept is that like your inner self, so really it is like the soul, but like you're like the soul swordsman, and like it's an isekai story. So you start off in like Japan, and then you and a whole group of like your classmates come into this world, and then you like break off into different factions, and there's all this stuff that we'll get to when we hit the actual story. But then like as you progress, so like you and it's Kiria who's the main character, and then Sheena is like the girl who has a crush on him, like the tomboy friend. And almost immediately in the story, she gives you like her heart sword, and so then you have your main sword, and then you have like your magic sword, and you fight with, there's 2 different buttons for each one, which is an interesting concept. And then it has the same thing where you can like press the right trigger button or one of the buttons on top, and it lets you like activate your buddies like special powers. But the special powers are like much more impressive in this than they were in Shining Tears, which is why I never used it in Shining Tears, because it was just like barrage them with arrows. Now it's like lightning strikes or like explosions or like dash attacks. Like it's much more of a spectacle. Like I said, it's like everything from the first game but better. And then you collect like a Pokemon's list of like 7 or 8, maybe even 10 of these like side characters that all have different hearts by like getting to know them a little bit, and then them trusting you, and then every time you get like a cute cutscene, and then you meet like other souls, and then like all the boys, right? Because of sexism, are all the boys who isekai'd over here, they are like soul swordsmen. So there's Triheart, Soma. It's like Soma. So I'm just gonna call him Soma. Soma Triheart. Like literally, that's his name. It's like so like Triheart, and then Kiria are like the soul swordsmen, and so they all have their own like batch of like people, and it's not just ladies. It's not like at first it was just all women, and I was like, is that what this game's doing? I approve, highly approve. But no, then there's some other guys. There's like the prince of like the main human empire. And then there's like the leader, like the emperor of the beastmen, and then there's like Jin Crow, who's this badass like Birdman with the iron wings and stuff, and then there's like a dragon guy. But there's also like a princess, the prince's older sister. There's Sheena, like I said, the tomboy friend. There's Huamei, the fairy. There's like other hot girl from like Kureha from the Isekai from like Japan, and then there's like Zect. There's a whole bunch of them. Anyway, so you just unlock them as like the story goes on, and then you get like access to more people that you can play with and do whatever. And they all have their special abilities, and they have different cool looking swords. And then you can like buy stuff, but like it's really like a minimal amount of stuff. Like it's mostly about like leveling up your stats so you can equip better gear. And then really like the big thing is you find these gems, and you use the gems to like upgrade your abilities. And then the soul charge lets your buddy's abilities become stronger and whatnot. And so it's fun. And then, it's an action role-playing game. So you run around and stab things and cast magic and do abilities and whatnot. And that's the gameplay. And it's broken up into phases, which is interesting. And each phase essentially is like, okay, so you have open world phase where you can explore and like go unlock like side quests and do side quest stuff and get people's soul gems. And then after that, then you have to go to like war. Then it's to war. And then you open up like a map, like a mini map, and then you can choose different like parts of the map to go to where you can fight these like instanced battles essentially. And those, so when you're just out in the open world essentially portion of the game, you're running around and there's gates until you clear all the gates out in like a territory and kill the big gate and plant the tree. Then there's no more gates there. But aside from that, then you're just like fighting like other forces. And so then you're in these instanced battles, and you just run around and kill those guys until you rack up enough kills of like generals or majors or whatever. And then you either fight like a boss or you just go to the next level, even if you haven't cleared out the whole thing. So that's nice. So it's very quick and smooth and easy and pretty fun. Okay, I think that's all really the gameplay stuff. that we need to talk about. Okay, so the game starts off with this smoking hot elf babe, which is excellent. And she gets awoken by some creature and then gets told about a mysterious forest and an adventure with minions. And then we get started. So we hear Kiria, who's the main character, talking to himself, and he's in some sort of dream. And then he hears a voice, and it's telling him about a gate, the Crimson something or other, and that he is in a mirage, or that she is in a mirage. But who is she? I don't know. She's in a mirage, and then Kiria is like very confused about the whole situation. And then he gets woken up by Sheena, and this is where we meet Sheena the tomboy. And we're both in school uniforms, and we're modern day Japan and whatnot. And she's mad because he like zoned out completely. And she's like, I was trying to talk to you, and you just like zoned the fuck out. And I had a hard time waking you back up. And you're like, oh, okay. I was having a dream. And she's like, all right, whatever. So we walk up to this gate of like this manor, and apparently we're supposed to meet up with a bunch of other school buddies to do something here because there's been like disappearances in the area, so we're gonna like investigate it or whatever. And she talks about demons and stuff, and then we tease her about being scared of demons, or that she's so mean that she's scared of the demons away. And she's like, hell yeah, that's right. And then there's an earthquake. And even though it's Japan, earthquakes happen all the time. They're like, that earthquake felt really odd. So I don't know what's going on with that. So once it stops, we split up to go like around. At first I thought they were talking about this place like a school, so I wrote school in my notes, but it's just like some manor. So we walk around the manor in opposite directions, and then we meet up at the back gate. Near the back gate is a sakura tree in like full bloom. And when we headed to the manor to talk to Sheena, we mentioned that that tree hasn't blossomed in ages. That seems very odd. And then at that point, Kiria gets a vision of an elf with a bandaged head standing near the tree, the same tree, only now it's dead. And then when he shakes himself out of it, this is before he gets inside the manor. I apologize. So when he sees the tree, all this stuff happens, and then he heads inside the manor through the back door. So at this point, we head into the manor, and we find Sheena. She's up on the second floor. She's looking at a book, and it's like an isekai book. It's talking about how people being teleported to other worlds and fancy worlds and all that stuff. And then essentially, when something happens in the mirrored world, the mirage world will open, and people will be transported to it, was the translation I got, which doesn't make any sense. And the more I played the game, it still doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so then Kiria mentions that the sakura tree is blossoming, and that's super out of season. And then Sheena like freaks out and runs outside, so we follow her out there. And as we are looking at the tree, Kiria notices that the crimson moon is out, and it's reflecting on this nearby pond. Then the whole world shakes with one of those like crazy irregular earthquakes, and we enter like another crazy dream. And in this dream, a voice tells Kiria that from before, the same voice from before tells him that it's time to unlock something with the key of our heart. And then he wakes up on this stone path, and it's a stone path right by the manor. But it's like things look a little bit different. Like part of the path is like destroyed and whatnot. And so he rushes forward. Let's see. He sees lots of destruction in the area, and he doesn't see Sheena. So he's like, "Where's Sheena? And where are the others?" And he's about to run off when he sees this brown-haired elf lady from his vision standing with Kirchi with like the bandage around her head. And he approaches, and she tries to tell Kiria something before handing him a bag and then saying like hope. At that point, an evil-looking elf guy, we'll call him Dark Elf, I don't remember what his name is, and he shows up, calls her Zekti, with like Xexecti, Execti, and then he's about to like kill Kiria, and then he has like some sort of change of heart for some reason, because he's like, I don't want to do it anymore. It's too much emotional stress for Zekti. And then he talks about taking her to get healed by a doctor or something, and they teleport out of there. Kiria then looks in the bag and is like, oh, there's a seed in here. So then he hears something in the manor and rushes back inside, running into a dwarf. And this dwarf name is Doug, and Doug's like our constant companion for the rest of the game. Not that he joins in the battles or anything, but he like runs the shop or the blacksmithing center inside the manors, or inside the HQ for us for the rest of the game. But first we asked about Sheena and whatnot, and he's like, oh, let's go over here. There's Laguna. It's this mining town right over here. And I know Sheena, she's gonna be there, so I'm gonna go ahead and you just come over here and do it. And we're like, okay, cool, we'll have to like track our way over there. And it's literally just like right outside the manor, there's a cave, and then we're in the town. It's good stuff. So we headed to the cave, and right there we were Sheena, yay! She's dressed in like fantasy garb and whatnot, and we're like making fun of her about that. But she's like, hey, I've been kicking it here with these doors for like a week. Where have you been? And Kiria's like, I don't know, I just woke up. So they chat about the world. I think our world is called Eld, like the Japanese world is called Eld here, like the modern world, and then the fantasy world here is called Liberia, I think, is how I was reading it. At that point, we find out that it wasn't just us who isekai'd over here. It was the whole building, the whole thing, like the whole apparatus, like isekai'd over here, which is interesting. Then the elder of the Norse comes down to talk to us about some more isekai bullshit. And we ask about the others, the other kids. And he says that he'll look into it, but that Kiria better get changed and get a weapon because in this world, like there's monsters out and about and the chaos gates and whatnot. And so Doug's like, I got it for you, coach. And so he runs off to get stuff for Kiria. And so we wander around and just talk to the doors. They talk about monsters abounding. They talk about this tower that's not working. And they talk about a beastman empire like Syrian, I think, and how it's in trouble, but it's not really their problem because they're not a part of that. At that point, Doug shows up and we re-suit up in like our fancy fantasy garb and get our sword. And then Sheena, Doug, and Kiria talk about fighting and swordsmanship. So apparently, Sheena and Kiria were in some sort of like sword fighting club back in Japan. And that Sheena always won, but that's because Kiria like always held back. Like she teases him about it. At that point, Dorf runs up and he's like, "Oh no, monsters are coming in!" And Sheena runs off to fight them. And then Kiria hesitates, but Doug is like, "Hey man, you got to go help your girlfriend out, and you need to help Sheena." And we're like, "Yeah, we got to help Sheena." So we rush off and we find that she's being jumped by a whole bunch of like goblin assholes, and so we yell at her to run because she can't fight against all of them, and that point she gets like jumped real hardcore, and I thought she died because we get this like cutscene where she looks dead, but nope, we get a cutscene, and in the cutscene, like a dagger hilt or it's a sword hilt. Sword hilt pops out of her chest, just like in Revolutionary Girl Lieutenant, and he walks up, hears a voice that says something in Japanese that I didn't really understand, something about destiny or sword and stuff, and then he grabs the hilt. And then blushes a little bit, but then pulls out a sword from her chest. Right, awesome, and it's this awesome fucking red sword, and it's super badass. Like all the swords are pretty badass, to be completely honest. And then she's totally fine. And so we talk to her about uniting and working in our way to like save everybody and do everything together. And then we get ready to fight. And then first there's a light in the sky and we hear the voice again. It tells us that we must use the power of the sword, which is the key to the heart and such. And then we get our tutorial. We learn about fighting. We learn about the different buttons so that we can do the team up attacks. Our secondary attack, which is like triangle, is for magic. And then square, I think on the controller, is for regular attacks. Or vice, I think it's something like that. Anyway. And then after we beat up all the goblin monsters and whatever, Doug and the elder like mosey on up, and we're standing in front of like the tower that they were talking about, and they're super impressed that we're able to summon the Soul Blade. Yes, the Soul Blade, and this makes Kiria a Soul Blader, or like a magic swordsman essentially, and that he can access the power of his partner's heart to summon a blade with a lot more power. And everyone's like duly impressed. So back inside the village, we learned that the Soul Blader always comes from elves. So that elves is definitely the world that we came from, but not that everyone from Eld doesn't always have this power. They have other powers, or they just have combat skills or whatever. And when they come, it's always because of some turmoil that's existing in the world. And they can lead to more turmoil, or they can lead to peace, I think, is what they were saying. So we talked to them more about accessing hearts, and we get sassed by Sheena, who says that we'll have to pay special interest to her so for her heart sword to be more powerful, which is true. So I don't know why she's like sassing us about it. And then there's a lot of implied feelings between the two of them at this point. And even Doug and the elder like say something about them being married, I thought. And if you want, you just completely, which is what I did, you can just completely ignore Sheena from here on out. The elder then mentions that the Soul Blader can access the Holy Grail, because this apparently is a Fate Stay Night game, as well as a Shining game. And because with the power of the Holy Grail, we can. Then the Soul Blader accesses the power of the Holy Grail. They like get a wish or something, and they can use that to like get home. So then Sheena and Kiria decide to set up the headquarters in the manor house. Doug teases them more about, needing their own privacy and being a married couple to have sex and whatnot. And then Kiria gets like very flustered, and Sheena's like, "Hey," she's very like tomboy tsundere kind of attitude going on. And then on their way back, they stop at the tree. Kiria pulls out the bag that he got from Zacht and shows her the seed, and they talk about it, and they head inside. A bit later, Doug and Sheena are talking about names for their mercenary organization that she wants to start. They're like, Shining Force? No. West Strider, which is like from Shining Tears? No. Then Kiria walks up, and we talk about that some more. Then the elder comes in, Doug says he's going to stay here and be the servant of the Outworlders, which is us. He keeps calling Kyria and Sheena his husbands in the Machine translation, which I bring that up because it was hilarious. I think it's just supposed to be like masters, because master and husband are like similar words in Japan. Like master of the house, essentially. So then the elder's like, hey, I brought a guest, and it's dun dun dun, it's Princess Clara. It's like Clara or Claire or something, and she's from Saint Phileas, which is like the human kingdom right next door to where the dwarfs are, and the dwarfs are like allied with the human kingdom. Anyway, she found out about the Soul Blader and wants to come ask for our aid in dealing with some issues that are going on in her kingdom. And then the elder like vouches for Saint Phileas so that we can go. We trust him, so we agree. So during this whole time, again, it's like we get a lot of like Sheena being jealous that Clara is there, being upset that we're paying her special attention. And Clara's like a babe. She's like a blonde babe. Sheena's like short redhead tomboy, right? Which is hot. Everyone's hot in this game. Like all the women. All the men are beautiful men too. They're like from an Atami game. Anyway, so the illustrations and art is excellent across the board. So then Kyria asks Sheena about being angry, and they argue a bit about her feelings and about the princess and whatnot. But then as we leave, the princess then gives us another tutorial about Chaos Gates and everything. I already talked about that, so we're not going to talk about that. But the Chaos Gates showed up recently. It's causing a lot of turmoil, so we got to go shut them down and whatnot. Because only the Soul Blader can access them and shut them down. Otherwise, it takes like a whole bunch of priests like weeks or whatever, so it's like a very difficult process. But at that point, we head and we find the castle. Then we head to the castle, find a gate. We get like more tutorial on how to get in there and get that out. We find an orb afterwards, and it's like, oh, you should keep that. That might be important, and it is super important. So if you're playing this game, especially without cheating, you definitely want to be collecting these orbs as much as possible. Princess Clara then praises us as we continue on to the castle. Clara leads Sheena and Kyria to the castle, and they're duly impressed. It's got like a giant impressive wall. It's a big old castle. We get inside. We're introduced to the bishop of the kingdom, or like the religious leader. And then they talk about the surrounding area and the regions. We learn that there's like an elf place to the north. There's beastmen to the west. And then the dwarfs, of course. The dwarfs just kind of hang out with the humans and whatnot. And then they talk about how there's a lot of animosity between the humans and the beastmen. Like there was some sort of war where the elves and the humans like teamed up to like beat back the beastmen or something. And at some point around here, Chris comes in. And Chris is Clara's little brother. He's like the crown prince. And they revealed they had like an older brother named Leon, but that he died when their father was killed, which was a while ago, which leaves Clara in charge as like the saint or whatever. Again, I'm just like I'm like machine translating with like a Google Translate with a phone to my computer. So some of this stuff I'm trying to like piece together as we're going along. I'm like, okay, I think I misread like this whole last section, and now I have to like reinterpret it. But so there's something clearly wrong with Chris. He's like very weak and whatnot. And the bishop takes him away. And when we ask about it, Clara explains that he was poisoned because their father, when he was assassinated with like a poisoned arrow or something, it like touched Chris as well, so that he received the poison as well. And that she's really wants to cure him and do that stuff. At that point, she changes the subject and talks about how Sheena and Kyria can stay in like the royal residencies here, and that they can team up with like the humans to like help protect them and the nation and whatnot. And then Sheena kind of shuts that down, declaring that we are an independent mercenary group called the Luminous Knights. And Kyria's like, oh, are we? What do we mean? And then Sheena's like, shush, shush, shush. And says that we will help with the Chaos Gates, but that we're going to work independently of Saint Phileas. But Clara's like, oh, that's fine. That's totally cool. Whatever. So she gives us free reign in her whole kingdom, gives us some titles. Sheena is known as like Red Rose. This never comes up again. And Kyria is known as like the Sword Saint or something like that. And then we're essentially free to roam. So we wander around. We check out some of the shops and stuff. I get like my PNAC situation set up so I can like finally be cheated out, because now we're like everything up to this point has been like story. There's been like virtually no combat whatsoever besides a couple tutorial things which were like impossible to lose. So we head back to the manor at that point, and we touch base with Doug, and then Sheena makes him like an apprentice knight, since apparently we were made knights by Clara, so Sheena feels like she has that ability or whatever, so that's fun. The next day, Doug secretly brings Kyria to meet with Clara, who's like waiting outside, and she's like, I want some help. There's like a border region near the Beastman land, and I can get like an elixir from like a pond out there that will help cure Chris, but I haven't been able to go, but like with your help I can. And it's like, well, why don't you bring Sheena? And it's like, because she's a bitch. No, that's not what she says, but she's like, well, I just don't want to, bother her. She seems like she doesn't like me or some nonsense. Anyway, so Kyria, since she's a shonen anime protagonist, doesn't like question anything. It's like, yeah, sure, why not? nothing bad can happen from not including Sheena, right? Right? And nothing bad does happen, though. So Doug is not convinced. He mentions that Sheena might be a little jealous and maybe we should tell her. We're like, no, it'll be fine. Just distract her or something. We'll be back. So we head out with Clara, and we get to the mountains, and the whole place is like shrouded by fog. And then a dragon man, like literally Ryujin. We find out later his name is like Huon, something like that. He rolls up and is like, you cannot come here. The fog, your heart is darkened and your motivation must be pure and something, and then he disappears. And so Kiria and Clara have like a heart-to-heart talk about all the burden she's carrying, about being the Saint, about being like the next in line to rule. And she's like, I don't want to be a Saint. I just want to have fun and like be a girl and whatnot. And then she explains that she didn't want Sheena here because Sheena sees through her. So it has nothing to do with like jealousy or anything. But she's like, Sheena knows like what's up, and it like bothers me that she kind of figured me out so quickly and whatnot. So Kiria does the shonen anime protag thing and encouraged her to accept her true self for who she is and all this stuff. And then bam, she leans back and a sword hilt comes out of her chest. So we pull it out and combine our hearts. And so like Sheena, she now becomes like member number 2 of the team. Or assistant number 2. I guess she's member number 3 because Kiria's member number 1. At that point, the fog leaves because she's like cured the thing in her heart. And the dragon man comes back and threatens us. And we talk him down for that because Clara just wants to get some water to protect her brother and whatever. And he's like, all right, just this once. That's fine. And then he tells us to leave as now that the fog barrier's down because of like the pureness in her heart, that monsters will be here soon. So we leave. And on our way back, we run into another injured beastman. This one is a birdman. And Clara uses some of the spring water to cure him. And then we talked to him about Chris. The birdman says that the water will help, but it sounds more like Chris has been cursed. And then it sounds like a fox beastman curse, and that there's not many foxmen left. There's the prime minister of the beastmen named Shume, I think. Shume. And then he also mentions that there's a fairy in the village of Lanqua, or near the Tower of Lanqua or something, that is able to cure curses. And so that we should seek her out next. He then says that he should leave before anyone sees him because the Beastman country and the human country are not on friendly terms. So we waver a little bit because we want to make sure that his injuries are okay, and he assures us that he's fine and that he's just going to rest for a little bit. After we leave, he makes some comment to himself about not expecting to meet us in this place, okay. So back at the manor, Sheena's waiting, and she's pissed. She gives us a hard time about leaving without saying anything, but she's actually fine because we went to get medicine for Chris and she's not like that jealous or whatever. Her jealousy like dissipates quickly throughout the game. Later, Doug asks us if Sheena's okay or mad because you got like a sword link with Clara. So Doug asks Sheena. So then Sheena shushes him, and someone enters the manor. It's the princess, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to join you guys because now I have a heart blade with the sword saint and yada yada." And she just like, "All right, you can stay, but only if you do the laundry and clean up." And then Clara's like, "Of course, I'm a woman. That's what we do." That's what she says. Based. Oh, good times. So then Kiria is out, he's going to go out and explore a little more or do whatever bullshit. It's essentially just like as soon as you kind of meander out there, which you have no choice but to eventually leave the manor, Chris shows up. He's feeling better, and he wants to hang out with the team, particularly that pretty lady Sheena. And Sheena loves this. She sasses Kiria for being like an asshole and not treating her better like the prince does. And then he mentions that she hates being flattered normally, and she's like, whatever, you're an idiot. I love it when the prince flatters me. They then talk about creating a war room, and then her and Clara go set that up. Since we have a full house now, since we have a full house now, it's time to create like a room to, it's just kind of expand the manor, I guess, or whatever. So then they leave Kiria and the prince alone to talk about Clara and her stuff. The communication turns to how the prince wants to learn about sword fighting from Kiria, and that he wants to not be a burden, he wants to be able to help out, and then he talks about how his brother Leon taught him a little bit, and then he collapses. Oh no. So Clara runs in, and we all make sure the prince is okay. We briefly discuss the curse and how we can take care of it, about the fairy and whatnot, and then the burden. And then we talk about the fairy is over in like Conan Village, and that she may be able to help. So then we head to like this map looking thing that we end up using like a lot to do like missions, because all the missions are like instanced or whatever. And this is from the war room that is now finished being developed. They took care of it very quickly. So Clara mentions that the Conan Mountains are beyond the fog barrier, so we got to go back over there that we got through earlier, and that there's an evil spirit that is going to get in the way of getting to the Conan village. Also, there's something about a fairy causing a disaster at some point. And it doesn't matter if you're under the fairy or the evil spirit or anything, because we're going to go help Chris. So we'll go, and then it's like, I clearly misunderstood. It's like evil spirit, the fairy causing disaster, and then it's like, okay, let's go ask the fairy for help. And I'm like, wait, is the fairy this evil spirit? It's a little confused here. And then if she won't come voluntarily, we'll force her. So we start up this mission. We beat up a bunch of actual evil spirits that we're guarding. So there was that. And then we run into the Dragon Man again. And we go back and forth about fighting. We have to do this, we have to do that. And he's like, I'm going to protect the fairy. She's like my sister. Or like, he calls her sister, but it's not like like the direct translation is sister, but it's more like a woman that you protect and care for is like the implication in Japanese. So we have to prove that we're worthy of seeing her or something. And then she comes out and it's like, lowly fairy that's over 200 years old. Yeah, boy, I found my waifu for this game. Hao Mei, a very Chinese name. She wants us to prove our worth. So then, so we pull a sword out of her chest and she joins the harem. Dragon Guy sticks around, but wants to fight someday to test his strength against ours. And so then we leave. And then after we leave, he thinks about how Hao Mei being so happy he's like, hasn't seen her be this happy in a long time. And so, because I get to be with my 200-year-old fairy lowly queen. So back at the HQ, she cures curse like instantaneously, and everyone's super happy. We talk about where the curse could be coming from. And it's like, okay, we'll have to explore and kind of figure that out. There's some back and forth between Sheena and Hao Mei just about stuff. And then Doug opens a shop at the HQ that we can use. We talk to Hao Mei, and she talks about how the seed we got before, that if we destroy like she explains like in the Chaos Gates, if we go to like a certain area in the open world portion of the game, remember there's like the open world portion of the game, and then there's like the missions, and the missions are ran through the HQ like war room, kind of like the war room in Shining Tears, but here you can also just like go out and just fight Chaos Gates, and once you clear it of Chaos Gates, and that part of the game is like all about the side quests, like opening up soul gems and everything else that I was talking about. So the open world part, if we go to like a certain dungeon or level, then we can clear out all the gates, and then I'll summon like Mommy Gate, and we go destroy Mommy Gate, and then we can plant the seed, and then there'll be no more Chaos Gates there, and then also we can teleport to those gates. So that's pretty cool. So at this juncture, we get introduced to the mirror. So there's a mirror, just like in other games, where you can go, just like in Shining Tears, that's just other games. Each one of these games is like in their own fucking timeline at this point, or series made by the company. But in Shining Tears, there were these mirrors you could go back into and replay like previous story-based levels. And so there's a mirror leading up to the second floor of the manor, and you could do that here as well. And there's this whole thing where he's like, oh, I fill a pool here, and then Hao Mei is like, oh yeah, it's called a dream mirror. You can like do this thing if you really want. And I like went in there for a second and was like, no, I'm good. And then we're about to head to the operation room, and when Doug runs in, because Cyrene is attacking, oh no! And they're mad, it seems like, because we took Hao Mei out, and she's like an evil spirit lady, and the army will likely be led by our friend Juan, the dragon guy from before. And so they've pushed past like the main fort, like the outskirt fort, into the kingdom of Phileas. And so we got to get out there and push them back. So we head out to the castle. We run into Dragon Guy, and he's all about that combat life, even though Hao Mei tries to like back him down. So we all chit chat a bit. Hao Mei mentions that the king doesn't really want war, but that it's but he's gone doing like whatever fucking king stuff. He's like King Richard during the Third Crusade. And then there's their prime minister, Shu Mei, I think is his name, who is driving this war because he's an asshole. And he's also into like a lot of shady stuff, and he's also a fox, so he's clearly the guy who like cursed the prince as well. But Dragon Boy doesn't give a fuck. He just wants to fight. So he's not going to fight us here, though. He's going to go wait at this fortress they overtook. So I'm like, okie dokie. So then we use the operation center to like fight our way through various battles until we unlock like the fortress battle. And then we bust into the fortress, and the Dragon Man runs out. We beat that ass, and then he mentions that we should kill him so he can die a warrior. But we don't want to do that. And Hao Mei mentions that tells him that he needs to survive so that he can live a proud dragon life. Then we see an attack from above. The dragon guy steps in front of, like, a bunch of arrows shoot down. The dragon guy steps in front of Hao Mei to protect her, and dun dun dun, a sword pops out of his back. Yes, he's also one of these guys. So it's not just a harem. You got like these bros too. So Kyria grabs the sword out of him and blasts the sword, or blasts the arrows, or whatever they were. Because, oh no, it's a trap, and he didn't know it was a trap, and he's super mad that he was tricked, and he thought he was just rescuing his sister Hao Mei, but instead the prime minister wanted to kill her. And he's like, that's fucking unacceptable. So then he swears allegiance to Kyria and joins the Luminous Knights. And at that point, we head back to the manor. Back at the manor, we have a discussion with everybody about the 3 towers. So there's 3 towers in the land, and they all have like shrine maidens, and the shrine maidens activate them, and when they activate them, they like keep the world safe. And there's something about like weather control, and then there's like a whole thing about how like Syrian's mad because without their shrine maiden, who is Hao Mei, then like the tower can't be like resurrected or cured or fixed or whatever, and that that is causing problems for them, like they're having droughts and stuff. And so they want her back so that she can do that, it seems, or they want her to die because they blame her for like not allowing it to happen or something. And then there's also a tower up by Phileas, but that one needs a shrine maiden to be activated too, and they haven't had a shrine maiden in years or something. And that this also is probably related to the increase in gates that have existed around the area. Doug runs in at some point, and he's like, oh no, there's another attack from Cyrene. And this time it's Reich. And so we head out to the strategy room, and Hao Mei, along with the Dragon Guy, talk about the defense and the attack. This happens every phase. There's like some story. You can go do open world, and then we get these like strategy meetings. And so then we fight through the operations room, these instance kind of levels. And so we fight all the way to Reich, and then we taunt each other, and then I just kick his ass. And then he demands that we put him to death or something like that. When Dragon Boy comes out and he tries to convince him that the whole war is messed up and that they're being driven by some ulterior motives. And then that leaves Reich to run off. So we head back to the manor again, as we do. And Clara thanks us for her help. And we're like, yeah, of course, princess, whatever. You're our friend, and you're part of the Luminous Knights and whatnot. So some time goes by, and the attacks quiet down, and we're about to head out to just go do some open world stuff. And Doug comes running in again, screaming about the secret weapon from the Siren army. It's another Heart swordsman. Oh no, another guy from another world. Wow. Hao Mei comes over and confirms this. She's like, yes, lots of people come over from Eld and they become Heartsmen. And then we talk about how we have a new enemy to worry about, or befriend. So we head out to look at the sacred tree. Hao Mei talks about how we can get infusions to increase our companion's power. This is what we do with like the soul gems. We then talk to Sheena about heading out to a certain area because there's something there. So Kyria and Sheena head out. We work our way in the open world part over to the area where we see a couple destroy a gate. It's Soma and Kureya. They're 2 of the classmates of Sheena and Kyria from the other world. So then there's an argument about supporting Cyrene or supporting Phileas, and how each nation blames the other for causing their problems. And then like all the like something and like the weather, and like literally I was like, I don't exactly know what they're talking about, but then they talk about the weather. And so Cyrene started the war to like kind of fix this problem or to do whatever, and they argue a bit, and then Soma says that they support different causes, and that it was him who tried to kill the evil fairy with the trap attack. Oh no, that was them. And we knew that because we saw them in like a cutscene that was like overlooking a cliff. Anyway, so they separate, and Soma says next time they will be enemies. So Kira and Sheena head back to the manor. Hao Mei is waiting. Cyrene is attacking again, and this time they're attacking with their sword saint, Soma. This means I'll have to face Soma already. Oh, it's so quick. At some point we run into Sumari, that's his name, who taunts Hao Mei and Kyria. He talks about how his trump card is Soma, the Heart swordsman, who walks up with Kureya. Sumari laughs and is excited to see how the fight goes. Corey doesn't want to fight because it seems like she likes Kyria, because everyone likes Kyria because he's an Shonen Anime Pro Tech. Then Soma mentions he understands, but that they have to fight anyway, and she's like, all right, I'll allow it. He then takes a sword out of her. Kyria does not want to fight and argues with Soma about it, but it doesn't matter because we're going to fight, and we beat that ass. And then Korra asks the boys to stop fighting, and then she collapses. Then Sumari shows up and calls Kyria a shrine maiden and has her dragged off. Kyria cries out to her and then tells Soma, is this really what he wants to serve? He wants to serve this asshole who's doing this mean stuff to his friend and all this stuff. And then the defeated Soma wanders after Kyria. Then Sumari summons a centaur and tells him he's another one of these like beast generals. So is Reich, and so is Hyun, the dragon guy. and he tells him to watch over the Shrine Maiden. He then runs off, and Sumari taunts us as we separate back to the manor. At the manor, we talk about how we need to chase after the centaur and how fast he is, and that then capturing a creature or something. Anyway, we head out to take care of that and to rescue Kuria. So we fight our way all the way to the centaur general guy who ran off with Kuria, and we beat that ass. Then Sheena comes up, and we rush off to rescue Kuria. She is in a cage, and Soma also comes over and helps, like, he cuts the cage open. And I get some confusing conversation for that Google Translate is clearly not translating very well. But then we get a cinematic, and the cinematics don't have subtitles, so I just have to, like, watch and observe. And even if they had subtitles, they move pretty quick, so you just kind of got to guess. But with my limited Japanese knowledge, it seems that Kiria and Somaru are discussing, like, the necessity of, like, choosing sides or, like, what side's right and whatnot, and then they have a whole little thing. And then we fight, and then they're in the cutscene, and then they stop, and then Somaru gives Kuria's sword, like her heart sword, like he just is like something about, like, he doesn't want to fight, or like Kuria wants to be with him more or something, and then he hands this is all in the cutscene, hands Kiria the sword, and then walks off into the sunset. So at that point, Kuria joins us as Luminous Knight. She's pretty good because she's an archer, and she's also a fucking babe. And thus far, she is the second best after the lowly 200-year-old fairy girl. So, like everything else after every mission, we auto back to the manor. We discuss the towers. So the towers have come up a little bit. The tower is like the first place we went. So there's 4 towers. Each one has like a shrine maiden. I think I've kind of talked about this a little bit. It keeps coming up. So it's like it's in my notes because I play these games like over days, so I keep these like notes. But the Hua Mei mentions that she is the shrine maiden of the Heavenly Water Tower, I think is what it was saying, and that they can go over to Cyrene and like reactivate it, and that should help alleviate some of Cyrene's like issues, which is why they're like attacking Vilius, because they blame them partially because we took Hua Mei or whatever. And that inside that tower there's another dragon man, like Grandpa Dragon Man, who is like Huan's like master or father or something. And that he says he'll talk to him so that we can make sure we get access to it and fix it, and that will help end the war. But that also, because he's a warrior and he's an asshole, or he's like a fun asshole, he's not like a mean asshole, that he's probably going to want to fight us to like test our courage or some bullshit like that. Anyway. Sheena about... Oh, okay. And then now that Kuria's here, Hua Mei like teases Sheena about having another rival of love. So now there's Claire, who I've totally kind of takes like backseat to the story for most of this game after the first little bit. But now we got Kuria too, and the kids from the high school are definitely like the main show. Like all the extra characters, like we first got here, like Clara seemed like a very important character, and Chris, but they like are virtually non-existent until like a pivotal moment later on, and then they kind of like disappear back into the background when the elf girl from like the very beginning like shows back up again, and she becomes like the most important character, even over like the school kids, outside of like the bro triangle, which we've met one of the other bros, which is Soma, but there's like another bro, and then like the trifecta bros become like the real stars of the show. There's even an anime based on like Soma's point of view of this whole story that I thought about watching, but it's only subtitled, and so I'm like, I don't know. Like I don't know if I have time to like sit down and watch that, and I hear it's not that great, so probably won't. And anyway, okay. Okay, so then we head to the town of Cologne, which is where the tower is. And the Shrine Maiden obviously has to be there to open it up. So Hua Mei opens it up, and we enter, and we kill a bunch of machines. And then she explains that the legacy of the ancients, so the ancients left the technology, and that it helps control the weather and does some other stuff. And then this old ass drunk dragon guy rolls up. It's Grandpa Dragon, and he yells at us. And Hyun tries to like talk him out of fighting us, but he decides he's gonna fuck you guys. We're gonna fight. And so once we do that, once we beat him, he has like sobered up. And so he rambles about a princess, which Haume mentioned she was a long time. Yeah, so he's like rambling about like the princess and yada yada, and Haume's like, yeah, that's me, but I was like 200 years ago. Like, you need to like grow the fuck up, old man. Anyway, so she steps into like the device and uses her like Shrine Maiden capabilities to cleanse it, and so the water returns. So there's no longer like a drought in Syrian, which should help alleviate the desire for war. We then talk to the old dragon man about Haume being seen as an evil fairy because she like took the water away, but she's actually the one who restored the fairy, so hopefully that gets fixed as well. He also mentions how the prime minister brought Korea to the tower as like a new shrine maiden, but that she couldn't do anything because obviously she wasn't the shrine maiden because the tower still belonged to Haume despite like his best intentions. And that's how when he got pissed off at her and kind of like cast her off and like treated her poorly and stuff. He then mentions Soma, and how he heard on the grapevine that he tried to assassinate the prime minister, but that he got caught and now he's being set up to be executed. So we have to run over there to rescue him. So the old dragon man is going to find out where the execution site is and let us know. So we go back to the manor, and then at this point we take Sheena to the jungle so she can get her soul shards. So these soul shards open up like these very extensive stories, right? And what you do, you got to get the soul shard to open up like access. So you go to the tree and then you access like the doors and their windows in their heart to like get like an extensive background and like character development for each character. I didn't do this because it's so much goddamn text. It's like it's visual novel levels of like text, and like I'm just trying to get through these games with I don't understand Japanese enough, and even with the Google Translate, it's like everything is like an extra minute. So when I'm trying to get through like a conversation that like if I was reading English, it would take me like a minute. It takes like 2.5 minutes because I got to like wait for the translation to go, and sometimes I have to like redo the translation on the phone because it doesn't make any fucking sense. And then you got to click through stuff, and then sometimes I have to like sit and think because I have to like piece things back together because it's like I think I know what's happening, but then like I get like a few dialect channels down and it's like hold up, none of that makes any sense. Now I got to like consider, like I got to think back to like the previous things that were said and how like the Google Translate didn't translate them correctly, and then gender's all there's all sorts of things about like translating Japanese into English that is not like a direct translation, and that's all this thing is doing. So it kind of gives me a headache, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm just trying to play these games and talk about the story, and I get like enough, and then I open up like the first soul gem here with like Sheena, and I'm like, holy shit, there is so much. It's like the full screen worth of like text. Like I was like, Jesus, like I'm not reading all this and trying to figure it out. Anyway, so if you speak Japanese or you want to sit and like ponder on that, then be my guest. But I'm not going to do that. So we're just going to go with the main story and the character stuff. Like I'm going to flip through some of them just to kind of get like an idea based on the backgrounds and like again my very limited Japanese that I can like kind of decipher. But Sheena's is just about like being in school and like how she like likes Kiria essentially and how they have a good time, and she just likes being a tomboy, but then she has like a feminine side she's trying to hold back and whatnot. Anyway, I'm not gonna do this with every character because there's a lot and I don't give a shit about the guys, only the waifus. And so I do hers, I do Haume, and then I do like a character will come up later, and I do Kuria's too. And they're all fine, but it's a lot. And every time you open like a door, it's like a whole nother section. So it's like it's like visual noveling. Like it is so long. Anyway, okay, so we get but I pick up the soul shards for the most part. We go talk about the weather. Let's see, we get back to the manor after we pick up Sheena's soul shard. And the reason I know about these soul shards is because I have like a guide, but the guide is very rudimentary. It's just like, go here at this time and you can pick up this, because it's probably another person who's playing with like very limited Japanese capabilities and they're just kind of like figuring stuff out as they go as well. Okay. So at that point, Haume's gotten word about the location of Soma's execution, and so we're determined to go rescue him. So we do. So Chris also has disappeared, and let's see, Korea. Oh yeah, and Korea is out by the tree. So we go talk to her, and she's pretty down in the dumps about everything, and she wants to give access to us for her heart and the sword. And this is where she like officially joins the team, because like he gave her the sword before, but that didn't give us access to her heart. So at this point, she kind of like confesses a little bit about her feelings to Kiria and like how she wants to be close and how, you know, she liked hanging out with him at school and whatnot, and how she likes that he rescued her. And so that opens her heart so that we can access her and use her abilities. And then we, okay, so then afterwards we get the mission brief, and we find out that Inu, who is like a firebird man, is in charge of the execution site. And then someone mentions that they're surprised because he's very honorable. And so we go ahead to talk to him and beat him. Oh yeah, and that the reason they're surprised, but at the same time he's compelled by the law of the Beastmen being one of the generals and the prime minister being in charge with the king gone, that he feels obligated to like have to do these things probably. So time to head out. We head out. We get to the site. Enu taunts us, and then we kick his ass. Afterwards, he opens the gate and encourages us to rescue Soma because he doesn't like this execution thing either. And as we get to the execution site, we see the execution has already taken place. Oh no! And then Kuria and Kiria are like super sad and cry out. Then this guy named Zero, who is clearly Shion from Shining Tears, flies down, and he tells them that Soma is not dead yet, that he rescued him, and he's keeping him in a different place so that he can rest. And he also mentions that he's not really a friend or enemy. And he says some other mysterious stuff about Kuria having a mission, and then mentioning bringing the crew from the other world here for a reason. So he brought us all over here, it seems. Then he pieced the fuck out. Back in the manor, we discuss Zero. Kuria mentions that she met him when she first arrived at this world, and Kuria also mentions that he heard his voice before. And that he has some sort of plan or something else that is like far beyond the war. That's the reason why he like helped get us over here in the first place. Hao Mei also has some recollection of meeting him like 100 years ago, going on behind some war or whatever. Hao Mei also has that she's gonna like look into it more, and I don't remember ever bringing up this guy ever again. Okay. Either way, he saves Soma, so that's good, and we like him. We head over to the castle to talk to the bishop. He tells us that at this point, Sirens activated their entire military force, and that we need to take care of that. Okay, we head to the... Okay, yeah. Oops. Sorry, I dropped my phone. Oh, shoot. Takes revenge. Sorry, I lost my place. Okay, so then we head out. We run into Centaur Boy again. We kick his ass again after he taunts us. And he mentions, like, we're getting stronger. And then he runs off. And I'm like, okay, I beat you twice, whatever. Then we fight Reich and Inu. Reich is the tiger guy, and then Inu's the firebird man. And they're super jovial. They just want to fight because fighting's fun and stuff. And we beat them. And then Shumei, the prime minister, shows up. He orders them to be better, and they tell him to go fuck himself and wander off. So she's like, you're a beastman, you fight. And then we're about to fight Shumei when King Rowan finally shows up. He tells Shumei that the war is over and the whole thing should never got started, and he's very upset. Shumei talks about getting revenge for the Fox clan because the humans killed all the Foxmen or something, and that in the last war or whatever, and that he's the one who then he curses at Hao Mei. The king reveals that Hao Mei saved Shumei, as well as recommended him to be the prime minister, and then he gets super confused and angry and runs off, and then we give chase along with King Rowan. Shumei gets accosted by Jin Crow, the guy we saved from earlier, the Birdman. And we all argue, and Shumei goes to fight the elf guy. Oh, the elf guy, yeah, so the dark elf guy from before shows up to reign. And then he kills Shumei and then tells Rowan that there's like a new world order and that he needs to get his act together. And then him and Jin Crow, who clearly are working together, disappear. Rowan talks about the North and how the North's on the move. The North is like where the elves are supposed to be, right? This rain guy is clearly like related or is an elf of some sort. That's why I call him the dark elf guy. Let's see. And that he apologizes for all the war and all the bad stuff going on because he left to find some ancient relic or something that's related to all these problems with the towers and whatnot, but that it didn't really go anywhere, it seems, or like he got some information, but he still like he abandoned his to the prime minister, and he should have known better that this guy was going to cause issues and whatnot, and that even with like the end of this war, that there's more problems and the towers still aren't all fixed up, and there's something else like afoot that needs to be addressed so that we can save the world, obviously. Heading back over to the mansion as we do, or the manor, we start discussing the Elven Kingdom, how they used to be super close to the humans, how there was like a whole war with the humans and the elves teaming up to fight the Beastmen, which is kind of like the cause of the whole previous battle as well. And then at some point, they just kind of made themselves separate. They hid themselves away, kept to themselves, and like nobody knows what's been going on with them. But they got a tower up there too. So there's the Beastman Tower, the Human Tower, and then the Elf Tower. But they all seem to be having like a lot of problems. And we want to head up there to kind of check it out so we can get it fixed. Like we got the Beastman thing figured out. And the reason why we haven't gotten the Human Tower figured out or fixed up yet, it was hard to understand. Again, like I'm like machine translating with like a Google app on my phone onto the screen while trying to like piece together things. But later on in the game, I'm going to spoil this here because I'm assuming they talked about it and I just did not get it across in my brain. There's the tower, the human tower doesn't have a shrine maiden, so the shrine maiden has to go in and like take care of the tower to like kind of fix it to get it working back right. So we had Hao Mei for like the Beastman Tower, but there's no human shrine maidens, like they don't exist. And so we want to go check out the elf tower because assumably there'll be like a shrine up there, or shrine maiden I mean, but they can't. It's one of those things like in Shining Tears where it's like we can't get into the forest necessarily without the elves leading us through the way. Hao Mei states that the whole world is in chaos, so that the forest is as well, so we might actually be able to get there without an elf if we just go check it out. So we head over there to check it out. But first we take Clara to the castle so we can get her soul piece. And then in the actual audience chamber there in the castle, we learn that there hasn't, there's reiteration about there's no contact from the elves, even though the humans have reached out several times. And then Hao Mei mentions that like there's been reports of like evil spirits up north. And that, again, reiterates time and time again that there's, like, no communication from the elves. Like, no one's seen or heard from them in a long time. A guard comes in and then tells the princess there's an issue that needs to be addressed at the castle. And that is that monsters are attacking the kingdom. So we head over to the wall, and we see that dark elf guy, Rain, along with some, like, mechs, like tank mech thingies. And then we see this girl. She leans back, and it kind of looks like the elf from the beginning of the game, and this guy with glasses like pulls a sword out of him, and then we learn that this is Tryhard. Yep, that's his name. I looked it up a couple different places too because I was like, is this just fucking Google like fucking with me? And it's like, no, his name is legitimately like Tryhrdt, essentially Tryhard or Tryhard Heart or something. And then they claim to, and we know that because he used to be friends with Kyria. Yeah, he's one of these isekai guys. So they came down from like the Elven Kingdom. And they mention that the Elven Kingdom, like Rain, the dark elf guy, mentions that the Elven Kingdom is like straight up just fucking gone. And then Tryhard and Kyria like argue about like what they're doing. And Tryhard says the whole world's in disarray, that they need like a strong hand of leadership, and that he's going to unite everybody through like the force of will if people won't just join him. And they argue about that. And then Kyria and crew are like, no, we're going to save the world by helping the towers and helping people. And there's no reason to like force everybody under like one rule. And this is, let's see. Oh, yeah, and then even though it's Zekti from the beginning of the game who was, like, very friendly, on friendly terms with Kyria, she seems like something totally different is going on there. So instead of a bandage on her head, she's got, like, these metal spikes sticking out, kind of like in Mistborn, right, those evil dudes. And she states that she belongs to the general, that she's a general of the Emperor now, and she doesn't seem to recognize Kyria at all. So, after the arguing, going back and forth, Kyria and Tryhard decide that they have to fight because they can't come to an agreement, and then they leave. So then we meet up with the crew in the HQ. We talk about what they call themselves, the Veilguard, which is hilarious because they're bad guys in that Veilguard game that came out was a piece of shit from everything I saw, and I absolutely refuse to even acknowledge that it has any relation to Dragon Age, which it does not because it's a garbage piece of shit. There's 3 Dragon Age games, each one progressively less good than the last, but still good. So then we decided to fight back against Veilguard and protect the world and fix the towers. All right, let's go. So we beat the shit out of these guys. But it was a trick. As we were like beating the shit out of them all, a crew of them like went behind us and invaded into the castle. So we have to run back and stop them. And then we start noticing that they have undead monsters, and the undead monsters are the soldiers they've killed that they've resurrected. No, terrible. So we fight a bunch of them to defend the kingdom and fight our way back into the castle. And we finally get to the castle and start fighting monsters there. But once we defeat them, we meet up with Clara and Chris and the priest, and everything seems good. Everything's great. They're pretty sad because some of the knights have been turned into monsters. And then a guard rushes in, and it's like, the gate's been breached. And it's like, who is it? It's Leon. And who's Leon? Leon's the eldest prince. That's right. So I don't know if I brought this up before because I don't remember even talking about it before, like in the game. I was like, who the fuck's Leon? And like the eldest prince. And I'm like, I kind of vaguely remember Clara at some point saying she has a dead older brother. And that's who this guy is. So the dead older brother shows up, Leon, but he's like possessed with a sword called Geed. And so he's like, I'm not Leon, I'm Geed. I'm going to destroy you. So he's like a zombified version of her older brother. And then Chris is like, that's not our brother. And he's apparently another one of these generals of Veilguard. So like they got like some real dark ass magic going on over at the Veilguard. And that he's here to take the castle, and Clara can like not respond. She's like completely like comatose in like, my brother's alive, but he's evil. I don't understand. And so then the bishop, who at this point I finally find out that his name is Rydell, he blocks Leon and commands Kyria to take Clara and Chris and get the fuck out of there, and that Chris must protect his sister. So Chris shows us to a secret passage as we carry the princess like out of there, leaving the priest to fight with Leon. After we escape, Clara is still having like a real struggle session. And then Chris hates that he's such a weak ass that he doesn't have the power to fight his like this Geed guy, and that he talks to us about wanting more power to fight and stuff and overcome those who took his kingdom. At this point, we take his sword out. So yeah, he becomes a member of our crew, and you get Excalibur, I think, which is a cool name. So he becomes one of the knights. This gets Clara out of her funk. And at that point, King Rowan shows up, apologizes for not being here earlier to help out with the attack on the kingdom, because they are also under siege fighting. So he invites us to Syria to team up to help build our forces back and to strike back at Phileas, which is the name of the human kingdom. The siblings take a moment to talk. So Rowan and Kyria like head out, and then Clara and Chris talk a little bit about their brother and how he's actually dead. But Clara's like, he's still in there. We just have to rescue him by destroying whatever evil thing is cursing him. So not only are we going over to Syrian to like start meeting with King Rowan in his like audience chamber instead of in the Phyllis one, we move our whole operations over there. So we're in the throne room. We got all our allies and we're all chatting about what's going on. Doug comes in and says that the King Rowan gave him liberty to like build like another HQ since the manor is like off limits now because it's like it's in the evil dark elf territory at this point. But he built a whole brand new one, and it's all ancient and shiny and very impressive. Everyone's super impressed. Rowan mentions that he is needing help at the border as his 5 generals, are holding off Veilguard for now, so we agree. As we finish the meeting, Chris mentions that Clara is missing. We track her down. She's like enjoying the city of Cyrene and talking about it. We chat with her for a little bit, and then Jin Crow shows up. Jin Crow, that's right, he works for those assholes who are against us, but he's also our friend. Because he mentions he's not a fan of Veilguard, that he's a mercenary, that he got hired over there, and that, you know, he doesn't have to be loyal to them. And he ends up, what he really wants to do is help Liberia, which is like country we're in. But he has a message from Geed, the magic swordsman, is waiting for us at the castle, so we need to fight him and take him out. So we chat with Sheena a bit, and then the team plans the move to take Phyllis back. Rowan shows up as well to be partake in this whole action. We review the map and get ready to fight for the castle, but first we're gonna go get some soul stones. While we're doing that, we do that, and then we fight our way, and then eventually run into Zekti. That's right. And Kyria tries to remind her that they met before. She gets super fucking angry because she's General of Veilguard and she doesn't know who this Zekti person is, or she does, and she doesn't call herself like a totally different name. So we fight her, we beat her, we tell her that's enough, and there's just no fighting anymore. Then Tryhard shows up and tells her to stop fighting, and he invites us to join him once more. And Kyria get into an argument. Oh, that's right. Kyria starts fighting with Tryhard again. They get into another argument about what he's doing, all that stuff, the cost of the lives. He disagrees and tells Kyria that he's going to leave him alone and give him some time to consider his offer because it's the best offer on the table or something. And then him and Zikti leave. Back at the new HQ, Kyria mentions to Sheena and Kyria that she wants some help destroying a Chaos Gate. And Kyria's like, yeah, of course, that's literally my job, is to destroy Chaos Gates. She then clarifies that it's a very specific gate where her and Soma left something. So it's like, yeah, girl, of course, let's do this. So we head out and find the gate, and then we find Tryhard and the Emperor and Zekti. They're clearing out Chaos Gates too, because guess what? He's also a heart swordsman, right? So fair play. Anyway, he's about to leave the rest up to us when there's an earthquake. Kyria and Zekti get the screen goes black, and then Zekti and Kyria wake up and they're underground, and they get into a discussion about working together versus separately. And she explains that the land of the north, the Earthland, is now a land of darkness. So Tryhard is using the dark forces to fight back against the darkness or whatever. She also mentions that the metal spikes in her head or whatever, they are there to absorb the darkness, and they're there to protect her from becoming corrupted by the darkness. We then bring up the seed she gave us at the beginning of the game and talk about hope, and how she had the hope that the trees would be reborn and they would protect against the cascades and all that stuff, and that, to remind her that there is another way. You don't just have to be an asshole and conquer everybody. She starts to remember a little bit, has like a crazy headache, and then she gives us her heart sword, but she's super pissed and confused about why this happened, and it's obviously because we're in love, but but we use her powers and our powers to escape. And right before we head out, she wants the sword back. She promises not to tell anybody about our connection and how that her heart is connected with ours. Because the only way you can pull a heart sword out, you can't do it forcibly, is that the other person has to make a connection with you through their heart and sacrifice or love or whatever else. And so she doesn't want Tryhard to know about it because she's a general and she's got to do it for him and whatnot, even though she has these strange feelings inside her heart for Kyria. Oh, okay. So we promise not to tell anybody, and then we head out, and then they take off in their direction, and then we head back to HQ with Kyria. when we get back, we talk to Rowan, and he takes us to the sacred tree, which is right near his castle entrance. He states that he wants to help the team, and then he's entrusting the future of his kingdom to the Luminous Knights. So we take out his heart sword. Hooray! We join his forces, and like every other guy that joins the team, like off to the headquarters you go, never to be spoken of ever again. Anyway, so in fact, I predominantly use Sheena and Hao Mei until we get somebody else that is the hottest of all. Obviously, it's Zekti, the new elf hotness, since Erwin is not in this game, unfortunately. Well, she shows up, but like for a moment, and she doesn't join the team. So that's who we're using. Then let's see. Okay, so then we spend some time taking guys around, doing little side quests and stuff. This game's got a lot of little like side quests you can do to get better equipment, and also to get the soul stones and stuff. Which again, I'm not going to cover that too much. We get a soul gem for Sheena while visiting Oasis. We get some wine by talking to the old man dragon and doing some other shit like that. So heading back to the planning room, we were talking about how we're going to fight Ged and take the castle back, and that there's a secret passage that we're going to use to fight into the castle, so we don't have to head it head on. And then also we got to do some time defending Saren first. Okay, cool, let's go. So we fight, defend, get to the secret passage. We get in there, and then Ged is here, but he seems very, like, sick. And then Treyarch comes in and gives him, like, some power so that he can have, like, invincible armor, quote-unquote. And then we hand them their asses, because Treyarch's there fighting and whatever, and then he wanders away, and then Ged is there, and then Leon is back to normal, and Jin Crow shows up and comes to take him to his throne. Now, this part was pretty hard to follow, I'm not going to lie, because of Google Translate, so I'm going to do the best I can, but if you speak Japanese or know what the story of this game is, I apologize to your people or whatnot. All right, I think I got what's going on, so here we go. So Leon explains that he did die, and that he is in fact Leon, the older brother of Chris and Clara, and that some evil power from the sword, which is named Ged, which possessed him, like it kind of brought him back to life and gave him whatever, like tied his soul to this whole thing. And the reason why the sword was able to do that was because during the peace conference between Cyrene, Phyllis, and the elves, their father knew something about there not being a shrine maiden in Phyllis, which he kept secret, which allowed the peace conference to go through. And that's part of the reason Cyrene was like upset, was because the world was going to shit, like they were out of water, but it was partially because the towers were falling apart, and it was made worse when Hao Mei left, because that was their shrine maiden, and the assumption was that Phyllis was stole her to be their shrine maiden, even though that's not how the shrine maiden thing works. They didn't know that. So because of that, like, betrayal, it gave justification to the foxes to curse the king and kill. So they cast the curse evil magic on the king, which killed him and struck Chris. But since it was meant for the king, it didn't, like, just made him sick. But they also like cursed Leon as well to kill him, and so he cursed and then he died. But because of the curse, he wasn't like a dead or something, and so the sword was able to like find and attach himself to him, and then he like helped out Tryhard and Rain. Is vague. I think that's yes. Okay. Okay, and then Jin Crow, and then he mentions that Jin Crow was there as well, and that he did something to help Chris at the time, so that he didn't like fully die, or that he was able to kind of slightly recover or whatever. And then when Shu Mei was like defeated, then Hao Mei came and like broke the curse. That's what happened. Anyway, the siblings get like an actual opportunity to like say goodbye to their older brother, and then Leon is like, "Thank you so much for protecting my brother and sister. Please keep doing that." And then he kind of like fades away, and then a light shines on Clara because dun dun dun. Even though the king thought there was no more shrine maidens, she is a shrine maiden. She had the power all along. It's supposedly like her mother was the shrine maiden, but she didn't have the power for whatever reason. Maybe because the king lied about something. I don't know. Again, it was kind of hard to understand exactly what's going on. But this is considered like a miracle, and so everyone's talking about the miracle and all that stuff. And so we head to the audience chamber with Rowan to talk to Rowan and Cyrene, and we talk about how Clara is now a shrine maiden, and then Hao Mei is like, "Let me check," and she does whatever fairy bullshit she's doing to confirm that yes, she is a shrine maiden. And then she's super impressed that a human being can be a shrine maiden, because I guess it's not a thing that could have happened. And then we talk to Clara and Chris about moving back to Phyllis, but they want to stay here with our forces and help, and that I guess the bishop's fine. Like, he didn't get killed by Leon. He was just like in prison or something. So he's going to kind of run things from over there. And this will make everyone stronger because we can all have like united front. Then everyone has a good laugh and they're encouraged about the future and whatnot. And so we head off to the tower in Phyllis. So because it's going to help with like the weather, stabilize the weather or something. And at the tower, we run into the dwarf elder who greets us and warns us that there is a guardian inside that we're going to have to take care of. So we head in, beat the guardian robots, and Clara fixes the tower. Awesome. So on our way, Jin Crow shows up and he talks about how he doesn't want to work for those assholes at Velgard anymore, and that he can't like fly because he had some like metal wing, and also that he had, again, like I apologize, I'm like butchering this, but I'm not butchering it because I didn't understand it in the first place, not because my notes are bad, which sometimes is the case. But that there was some sort of like, he had his metal wings because someone gave him metal wings and made him promise to do something, and he fulfilled that. So now he wants to join us and help fight for Liberia. And so he joins the team, and we get like a soul sword from him as well. Hooray. Velgard is using attack. Okay, he tells us that, and then he tells us that there's a mobile fortress that Velgard has like unlocked, like ancient technology, right? Some old bullshit, and that they're using it to attack. So we have to fight and destroy and protect the land or something. And okay. And then we got to get, so we start going through like the battle menu again, and we fight our way, and eventually run into Tryhard and Zekti again. She's super mad and reminds Kyria that the next time we'll be enemies, because I guess this time we weren't. And then Tryhard, she reminds us that that after we were like lovers in the cave, that now we're going to be enemies again. And then Tryhard asks us to join him one more time. We say no, we fight, we beat their asses. Zekti starts acting super weird, like she has like repeating, acting like a broken machine, kind of like there's something clearly wrong with her. And then the dark elf, Rain, who keeps popping up, he then shows up and does something so that Zekti and Tryhard can get away. And he seems very like upset about Zekti, and he threatens us, but then he also just like fucking flies away. But he's on the mobile fortress, so we fight him there, and we beat that ass, and we destroy the carrier, and then he starts, like, laughing, and he's not very concerned, because apparently they have, like, a factory they could just, like, pump these things out, or they have, like, a whole... I think they were talking about how they can build a bunch, but, like, there's also just a bunch that exist. It was kind of confusing. So there are, I guess, like, spoiler alert, we do fight on top and destroy, like, at least 3 more of these. I think 4 actually. 3 or 4 of these things. So they are producing more, or they are digging up more, or whatever. So he's laughing because this was just like the first salvo, and there's plenty more where that came from, I guess. Back in the assembly hall with Rowan and the rest of the team, we talk about the mobile fortress factory, or factories? Factory. I think it's just one factory. That this is why Rain was so confident, so arrogant, because they literally have a factory. They can pump this stuff out, like I literally just said. Anyway, so Jin's like, oh yeah, I know the lady who works there, who like runs the whole factory. She's really smart. She's an Isekai girl, of course, and we haven't met her yet. But she's also the one who made his like iron wings, and that's like why he owed her a favor, because he had to do the one thing, and that was the person he had to owe it to. So time to go to the factory, check it out. First, some character stuff, including my second waifu. She was my first waifu, but with Zekti back, sorry, Haume, you 200-year-old very lowly queen, it's time for you to move into second place. Because there's one thing I got a weakness for, it's hot elves. as a normal man, it's like 85% of guys who are into fantasy, like hot elf with giant tits, absolutely, who dresses provocatively 100% of the time. So, and you know, it's the closest thing I'm going to get to Erwin in this game, unfortunately. So that's what we're going to go with. She's got darker hair, which I like better, to be completely honest. But she's definitely not as like sexy or fun as Erwin. And there's not really a romance in this game. Like as much as I can pretend in my heart, Shining Tears literally had like Erwin and Shion, who's 0 now. Maybe he was always 0 all along. Definitely had like a romance and some feelings towards each other. Wow, Kyria, there's like some feelings from Sheena. I don't know, maybe if I did her ending, there'd be something. But like anyone else, it's just kind of like you get an ending at the end of the game. And it's just like, it's usually like a group ending, and it's like they're just doing stuff. So the romance thing doesn't really exist. It exists between this lady we're going to meet and Tryhard. And that's the thing, it's kind of hinted at with Zekti. But then like, even if you do her like story thing, it's not really there. Okay. So, let's see. Oh, okay. So finally I do Haume's like soul story thingy, and it is excessively long. Like I mentioned this before. It is like long. Like it is like visual novel long. Not the length of like an entire visual novel, but like when you're playing like Japanese visual novels, they tend to like be very verbose and go into like these long drawn out things, and sometimes you'll have text across the whole screen, like more often than like English visual novels. And so you get a lot of that. Like you get a lot of backstory that I did not even attempt to translate because I was getting kind of fed up. I got at least 2 more of these goddamn games that I gotta translate with Google Translate to get through, and I'm already kind of like burning out of doing it. So I was just like, nope, we're just gonna stick with the main story. But yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. If you really want, some of it's on the screen, like briefly, you can pause, get your own Google Translate out, and kind of look at it. But that's all for you. So then we fight our way through some machines. Now we got like angel machines, and we fight Zekti again, who's still acting like a machine, and we beat her. And then this chick, Hilda, who's the Isekai girl who runs the factory or whatever. I think it's Hilda or Hildea. She comes out. We talk about the plague that is infecting the Elflands and how she's working to keep the elves alive by putting the metal stuff on them, just like Mistborn, and protect them from the plague. But really, they just become like living zombies. So Zekti had like a personality and everything, even though she had like her bandage over her head. And there's more than Zekti that meets the eye. We'll get more of that later. It might have come up here, but like I didn't understand based on the translation. But we'll get to that when we get there. And then we're about to force Zekti and Hilda to come with us when dun dun dun. Guess who shows up to stop us? That's right, not Tryhard. Soma, he shows up to stop us, and he's like, I don't work for either side. And then we argue about the whole situation. He states that Kyria is no better than Tryhard, and I'm like, okie dokie, I guess. I mean, he's like summoning the dead, imprisoning people, massacring innocents. I am literally just fighting undead monsters for the most part. I think I did fight. That's true. I did fight the Beastmen to protect Philia, so I guess in that regard. But it was an act of aggression on their end, so I'd say someone's absolutely full of shit. But whatever. This sticks in Kyria's craw, which becomes like a main focus of the story at this juncture. Then Zekti starts to malfunction some more, and Hildia teleports them both away. We talked to Soma, but then he's very cryptic, or the translation's just bad on my Google Translate. Because he mentions some sort of mission that's given to him and like his whole other thing he's doing, which I guess if I watch Shining Wind X Tears or Tears, I think it's X. I think it's Wind X Tears. It could be Tears X Wind. Then we get his side of the story right, but that is not what we're going to do. So I'm never going to get it. Okay, so we all have our separate missions that we're doing and whatnot, and then he probably has something to do with Zero. And he also mentions that he's camped out, where he's like some place where he's camped out with some other people and he's hanging out. And it's okay. So we continue our battle. We head to Enu, the Birdman fire guy, and he warns us about an upcoming attack. Then Hilda flies in on her broom, and now she's a super sexy witch, like much sexier than anyone else. I'm like, God damn, where's this? And I'm like, hell yeah, sexy witch. This makes me, if you follow me in my stuff, that makes me feel a certain way, sexy witches, like in Ender Magnolia. I think it was the last time it really came up, but I'm like, I'm game, 100%. To be the thrall, the sexy witch. So anyway, Kyria points out that she's barely recognizable, and how where's Zekti? We just spoke to her, and then she says some crazy stuff, and she has like a split personality disorder, or there's some sort of like thing going on where she's two people in one, or something. So she can function as like the kind-hearted nerd who does science shit, and then she can be this like sexy witch at the same time, which is cool. And she's like, you got to do what you got to do to survive in this crazy world. I was like, all right. So we beat her ass. She laughs as there's like a huge attack on the way, and so we head back to HQ. We discuss the final battle and taking care of Tryhard once and for all. Kyria brings up Soma. Kyria gets mad and talks about beating him. He's like, this is what I mean. He's like got a sourpotamus thing right now. He's having like a Act 2 slump, I guess, which is like a term they use in movies to talk about how it could be beyond movies. I learned about it in film school. It's like this thing where it's like everything's like, the protagonist is like things are going, it's becoming better, it's doing great. And then like in the second act, they like get sad or they fail or something bad happens. And so that gives like the climax even more gravitas because they have to like overcome and whatnot. So that's kind of where we're at now. But it's more just kind of Kyria being kind of an asshole. And everyone's kind of talking to him, like, hey man, you're really upset. Maybe you should calm down. You don't need to go kill your friends. Someone's just trying to help and try hard, something. And Kyria's just being real emotional. Like everybody, like Sheena, Kyria, Clara all try to talk to him. Haume and Rowan and Jin have a little conference away from the rest. And they're hinting at something that I don't think ever comes to fruition. They talk about Kyria acting differently, and also mention that they think he'll be able to overcome it to save the world. They're not like super concerned about it, and that they trust him. Then they talk about the interference from those that watch over the world, and how will they be friends or will they be foes? And this is hinting at the cast of Shining Tears, which we'll get more of them very shortly here. So before the final battle, Kuria tells Kiria and Sheena that Soma sent them a message to meet at the manor, and Kiria's being kind of a turd about speaking with him because it goes to trap, that guy's an a-hole. And then Sheena and Kuria convince him that, like, hey, no, man, he's your friend, we gotta go check this out. He wouldn't set a trap, he's not like that. And so we head over to the manor and he finds Soma along with Tryhard and Hilda, and he's trying to have like a peace conference here. So Soma wants the two of them to make peace for the sake of the world, because if they fight, it could cause destruction of the whole world. And they argue, then Tryhard storms off because he's a Tryhard. Hilda apologizes but tells Kira that Zekti's doing okay, that she'll be fine. And then she leaves to follow. Then she leaves, followed by Kiria. Sheena and Kuria stick around to talk with Soma some more. He swears he will stop the fighting somehow and protect the world. The girls are very concerned about the fighting and talk about how they are concerned about Kiria's attitude lately. So then back over to the strategy room, Hao Mei describes the final battle and how there are several fronts. The Beast Generals will protect certain areas, and we will we'll back them up, and then we'll fight back. So then it's time to go. But first, it's time to do some side quests. We take Jin to go get his soul shard. Then we do some other stuff, and then time to start the battle. So now we got to fight to the battleship, which is, I think they're, So another one of these like mobile fortresses. We fight the machines on the way. Then we get to Tryhard and Rain, the Dark Elf, show up. We beat them. Then Kiria challenges Tryhard to a duel. At that juncture, Soma shows up to stop them. They combine forces, like literally, like it's like a cutscene. So we have Kiria and Tryhard like fighting and going back and forth, and then someone's like, "Aha! You guys need to stop. I'm going to stop both of you." And then both Kiria and Tryhard are like, "Nope," and they both turn and cast like magic at him to stop him from interfering with their duel. And it's like, okay, you guys are kind of assholes. But what are you gonna do? And then Kiria gets like his sword knocked out of his hands, and then Tryhard's about to like stab him for good and cause that to be the end of that. And then Zekti shows up, and she gets stabbed instead by Tryhard. And he's like, no. Kiria catches her and she smiles and asks him something about protecting something. Again, there's not even subtitles. I have like no idea what they're talking about. And then Rain, the Dark Elf guy, who says something about being her like, oh, sister or something. And it's like, wait, are they related? Anyway, he freaks out and he starts summoning like ice crystals everywhere, and the three of us flee. Tryhard, Soma, and Kiria. So we wake up. Apparently we got knocked out at some point, and then we're in the audience chamber of Rowan's thing, and we're talking to our companions, and they talk about how after the Rain lost it, he created this giant ice wall around all of Liberia, and that it's just like ice is popping up everywhere, and he seals it off, and that he doesn't care what happens anymore, the consequences, because of what happened to Zekti. And then later, Hao Mei meets with Rowan, and talks about how Kiria can't summon swords right now because he's like lost hope, and he's lost his heart or whatever. And hopefully soon he'll be able to do it. His heart's broken because he's in love with Zekti and she died for him and whatnot. Essentially is what they're going with there, even though there's no love story in this for some crazy reason. Then they talk about going to some island with an ancient dragon. So later on, we're at that island. Oh, sorry. We learned that the kind of main castle of Sarian is actually an ancient boat. And this is like the boat he was traveling around with doing stuff. And so when everything happened, like the main part of Siren's like headquarters, like they left the generals behind to like guard the city, but Rowan fled obviously with the Luminous Knights so that they could keep fighting and they could find like a way to kind of break through the ice and come back and save everybody. And then so we get to this island, and I think it's called like cayenne pepper. And the Luminous Knights are all on the beach there talking about how much fun it is and how none of them knew there's an island here and it's nice to have like a little break or whatever. And then Sheena asks Kira to go swimming, but he emos his way out of that by being like super down about everything. Back over at the audience chamber, everyone's talking about going to Valeria to get help to find out there's a witch that Hao Mei knows about. Jin also knows about a witch, like an ice witch. So there's just like 2 ice witches apparently. And we're going to go find one of these ice witches to help us blast through like the ice magic thingy, the ice magic barrier that Rain summoned. And Valeria is, I can't remember what it's called in Shining Tears. I don't think it was called Valeria. But Valeria is literally the town that we played, that the whole game of like like the castle town that Shining Tears was based in. And so finally, Kiria's like, all right, yeah, let's go. But he's still kind of acting like a sourpotamus about the whole situation. So we take Jin with us because he's got connections in Bestia, which, if you remember, is kind of like the beast portion of the area over there. And so we head over to Valeria, and then as soon as we get there, we start having a conversation with Kiria about friendship and how friendship is magic, and even though he can't access the hearts of his friends, they still believe in him and they're going to work with him. And this I think Sheena gives him all this information, and then Jin Crow encourages him even more. And then we get accosted like almost immediately by the guards. Apparently there's a guy with black and silver wings that did something bad. So they summon their leader, Mao. Hey, it's Mao from the first game. She has like sexy long hair, but is still not a great waifu. To be honest, she's still like okay looking. She mentions that Jin is not the guy they're looking for. Jin reveals that he is from Bestia originally and asks about the king, who's her father, if you remember. He's looking for he's looking for a woman named Belclaire, who apparently is already dead. Wah, wah, wah. So they talk about her friend. The friend is Zero, and Zero apparently killed the priestess from the first game, from Shining Tears, which I don't remember his name. And then Belclaire, and he did some other shady shit, betrayed like his friends and stuff, killed another friend. So I think he killed the priestess and the dragon guy from the first game is what is implied. And then he like disappeared. And then Kiria's like, oh yeah, I ran into that guy a few times. And Mao says she still believes in her friend and whatnot. And because she still believes in her friend, even though the shady shit he did and whatnot, Kiria like starts thinking. And on the way back, Sheena talks to Kiria again and finally convinces him that friendship is magic. And so that he can rely on the heart blades, and that finally he can access the heart blades again after realizing that, like, even though if he does bad things or doesn't always do the right thing, that friends can still forgive friends and believe in them and whatnot. Even murdering their other friends apparently can be forgiven as long as, like, because friendship is magic. Oh, Lord. Okay, cool. So back in the council room, Jin tells Rowan and Hao Mei that Kiria has recovered, and that he can now summon Heartblades again, but that his contact is dead, so he doesn't know what to do. They're all happy about the fact that Kiria is able to do Heartblades again. Elsewhere, the princess, Clara, the prince, Chris, and Korea, they're all talking about how great Sheena is at knowing exactly what Kiria needs to get him back on his feet, and how she helped Kiria get out of his funk. Korea is jealous, because of course she has a crush on Kiria as well. And then Sheena and Kiria come back. They all praise Sheena for being great. She gets super embarrassed and it's like, I'm the leader, that's my job. It's not because of any other reason, like I want to have Kiria. They then talk about the Frost Witch and how they need to find the other Frost Witch that Hao Mei knows, so they can get back to Liberia and help Soma and try hard and then save the world. So again, we meet up in the council room and we all talk about sacred artifacts. So the sacred artifacts, if you remember from Shining Tears, if you saw my review, there's like the Beast King one that was going to cause all these problems, and then there was like the Dragon one in the temple, and they were going to like kill each other and like have a huge fight and whatnot. So this game has a similar thing. So there's the Fairy King in Liberia, sacred artifact, and then there's the Water Dragon King. So there's a Dragon King all the way back in Valeria, I guess, at the temple. And then there's the Water Dragon King here on this island that we're just like holed up on. And then they'll fight and destroy everything and cause panic and destruction throughout the world. And that they find out, we learn that the towers in Liberia don't just control the weather and whatnot. They actually control the negative energy. They stop the negative energy or cleanse the negative energy that's going to the artifact that will awaken the Fairy King to stop that. So the fact that they're not all working is making it so that negative energy is going in and that the Fairy King's going to wake up and kill everybody and whatnot, and that icing up the island is not really helping out with that. And then Rowan and Hao Mei speak about a method they've developed to partially wake up the Sea Dragon King so they can control it and then send it against the Fairy King, and that way they can not end the world, but they'll still be able to stop the Fairy King despite not being able to go back and get the towers. And the whole thing sounds really sketchy, and thank goodness we don't actually have to do it. Anyway, so first we're like, all right, time to go wake up the Sea Dragon King. So we head to the ruins, and once we get there, we speak with Blanc Neige. Yeah, that's right, Blanc Neige. She actually looks way more sexy than she did in the first game. She's wearing she's barely wearing a shirt. It's freaking fantastic. Super. So she was hot before, but now it's even better. I was like, excellent. This is freaking-tastic. And then Rowan shows up and he's like, oh, hey, it's you. We were looking at artifacts together, like wandering around when I was doing my thing. And they talk about activating the ruins, and she's like, it's super dangerous. We shouldn't do that. And then we do something to like activate them, I guess. And Blanc comes with us to the ship. And then with her power, and I guess the power of the artifact that we are somewhat controlling or somewhat waking up, we're able to crack through the ice and crash back into Liberia. And at this point, we find out that that her mother is actually the Belle Claire lady who Jin knew. And so Blanc was the ice witch all along, right? Of course. Anyway, so we land, and then her and Kyria head out, and she mentions how the ice is full of sadness and how to break the ice, she had to get rid of the sadness or cleanse it or whatever. And that she cleansed it around the town of Siren so we could get out. And so now we're back. We're back on the island. We're back in the town of Siren. And we, of course, go back to the audience chamber now that we got through that whole story. So there we discuss several things. We discuss how we need to go out and find the people of Liberia, find out who's still around, rescue anyone who needs to be rescued and whatnot. How May wants to head straight for the last tower up in the Elflands as soon as possible, see what's going on. And then everyone, has this whole talk together about fighting together and how they love spending time together and how they're great teammates and how friendship is magic and stuff. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Now that we're back in Liberia, it's time to go check out and see what's been going on since we were banished by the ice darkness or whatever. So we head out with Sheena to see what's going on, and ruh-roh, all the chaos gates are back and all our trees of planet are gone. Sad times. Soma shows up at some point, and he destroys a chaos gate real fast, and he's apparently gotten a lot stronger in the month or 5. I have a hard time discovering how long we're actually gone. Someone probably mentioned it at some point, but with the translation and everything, I totally missed it. Because in game, it seems like it was real quick. We just showed up at the other place, had a few conversations, did the ancient thing, and then we rode back with Blanc Nerge. I'm just calling it Blanc with Blanc, and came back in. So I'm 3 days passed, but it seems like it was quite some time. Not a year, but at least a few weeks to a month. But in that short amount of time, regardless, Soma's gotten very strong. He's also teamed up with a whole crew of guys, and that him and his friends have been to the last tower and up in the Elfland, and they've been protecting people and running around and doing things. And this group of people he's hanging out with, they're all about the dealing with the ancient artifacts and whatnot. So then we're cool, we're both going to work our own little angles. And he's like, yeah, we'll protect you guys from the south. You're going to take back land from the north to kind of reunite Siren and save the people. And we're cool, sounds good. Let's do that. At some point, Blanc shows up and says something about them being here and about him not doing something. Anyway, so we get to the first tower, and where Hao Mei was the Shrine Maiden, and then Blanc rushes out, and she calls out to somebody who turns out to be Zero. So Zero's Xion comes down, and they talk about him being involved, and she says something about he could fix this problem right now, but he refuses, and he's like, I gotta let the people who are currently living on the earth take care of things. I can't be solving other problems for it or whatnot. And then Heroine shows up, and she somehow looks even more fucking sexy than she'd before. Her outfit is more revealing, and her tits have somehow gotten bigger, and I was like, damn, game, why do you taunt me with this? I just want to ravage the shit out of that elf pussy, no joke. God damn, looking so good, girl, man. Blanc looks significantly better. Not that she was hot before, but now it's damn. And then Erwin, man, they really stepped up their game. Whoever made this fucking game cooked with these characters. Mao, who cares? And most of the other girls, honestly, who cares as well. Zekti's hot. No one's bad looking. None of the girls aren't attractive, but I was like, damn, Erwin, man, they really they love this chick. She is so hot. And these Erwin is the friend, along with Zero and Mao. Apparently, they're all the new friends of Soma that have helped him and been doing the artifact stuff. And I guess there's others, and they're I gathered they were at the manor, that's where they built their base, and that's why they're gonna guard the south, I guess. So Erwin introduces herself. They talk about finding and stopping the ancient artifacts all over the place. After, I guess, Shining Tears, this is what they spent most of their time doing, and destroying the summoned monsters and whatnot. Her and Blanc have been working together this whole time, and so they chat for a minute, and then Kyria thanks Zero for helping out. Helping out Soma, helping him get stronger, and then they all go their separate ways, mentioning that we should definitely go to Laguna Village and help them first. Okay, so now it's time to fight to save the North, rescue the generals that they're left, and rescue all the people, the beast people from in Siren and whatnot. So we fight our way up to the desert oasis forest where we run into Yoon the Firebird and Reich the Tiger Man, who are there fighting, and they're getting overwhelmed, and they're kind of like, all right, this is our final battle. At least we get to fight to the death, and we get to die in battle, and everything should be good, and we get to be brothers, and it's super badass. And then we show up and save them, and it's like, hooray. Then we talk about how the leader of the bad guys is in the nearby fort, and we tell them to head back to Rowan, and that he will take care of the people, and that we'll go take care of the fort and save all the people there. And after some back and forth, we finally agree to get. They finally agree to like move on their little way. So we head to the fort. As we approach, a bunch of demons run out, and they're all fucking scared and whatnot, because inside is Dragon Grandpa. Yay! It's one of the generals. He seems to be possessed by some sort of darkness or something, even though he's fighting the dark spirits or whatever. So we fight him, and after the fight, he's like, "Oh hey, sorry, I was super drunk." Dragon Grandpa. And so he apologizes. So we head back to the council room. We celebrate the freeing of Cyrene, and then the talk turns next to rescuing Phileas, right? So Cyrene's good, so we gotta go. So then the dragon guy, Hyun, talks about how beautiful the princess is, and she's very charmed by this, which is delightful. And then we plan to push past the fort, and then attack all the way back to the beginning to move on to the castle. So we fight. We get through the first fort and then the second fort, and then we run into Centaur Guy. He's been leading the defense over here of Phileas. He teamed up with the humans, it looks like, and he tells his ass to continue to guard so that we can focus on the castle. Wait, no, okay. So he's defending something, one of the forts, and the castle is filled with dark spirits. At the castle is the Ged sword that's controlling armor. Remember, so Ged is the sword that possessed the dark sword, demon sword, whatever, that possessed Leon and kind of kept him going. So now he's just possessed like the living armor that Tryhard gave him or something, I guess. So we got to fight him again. Only this time we fight him with like a sword as well. So we beat that ass. And then the bishop shows up and cleanses it for good this time. So hey, the bishop's alive. Excellent, good. So castle's freed. We talk about freeing the elf nation next. That's the last one. The problem is the elves in Liberia are all dead. Wah, wah, wah. So we need one to get into the forest because they hide the entrance, right? We talked about this before. And Zekti doesn't count because apparently she's not actually an elf. She's like a construct, or she's like biologically grown in a lab or something, but she's not actually an elf. She's like some sort. Yeah, it seems like she's some sort of like machine, to be completely honest. Like she was constructed, and then there was like a spirit put in her or something, which is why she's so like, I don't know. It was confusing. I'm not gonna lie. So, but somehow she's not an elf. Like she's an elf, but she's not actually like a full elf because of some reason. And then it gets explained, but that she is a combination of some ancient secret weapon and like the spirit of the old Elven Queen or something. And the Elven Queen, if you remember all the way back to the very introduction of the game, because we always have like the introduction where it's like, hey, there's like a hot chick or a mage or an old mage and like a fairy. This one had some crazy white looking thing, and then this hot elf babe. And so that's the queen. So let's see. First time I've seen that come up. Yep. Okay. Like this, it maybe came up. I just didn't understand it because of the translation stuff. But I was like, wait, she's not actually like an elf, and all the elves are dead. That's weird. So Erwin comes in. And you got to remember, she's not from Liberia. So this is all Liberia. This continent of Liberia. The world is not Liberia, which was also confusing because sometimes I felt like the word they used was world, but clearly that's not the case because Erwin and all her people are still alive and doing fine. So. She rolls in, and then she has that cute animal thing from like the very beginning introduction, and she's like, cool, he's gonna go meet us at the opening of the forest and he can help out. And they're like, what about the Shrine Maiden? And then like, well, maybe we can use XD as a Shrine Maiden, regardless of how she is not actually like alive, or like she's not actually an elf. Maybe she can still function in that regard. Oh, I forgot to mention, did I forget to mention this? Yeah. Oh, I apologize. At some point, we wander back over to the manor, and Zekti's there, and she's like doing great, and she's like cured of like the metal parts are out of her, and she's not like repeating stuff like a crazy person anymore, and she's got that cute little like flower or like winged helmet that all the elves wear that like Eurwin is wearing or wears, and so then she joins the team because she's in love with Kyria, and you know he has like strong feelings towards her as well. Okay, I don't know why I didn't write that down. That definitely happened at some point. Okay, so yeah. So then we head to the forest where the cute little thing does a little dance, and the forest opens up, and then we proceed into the town of the elves. There we meet the spirit of the Elf Queen, which is like a giant crystal attached to like the tree in the very center, and it's dun dun dun. This is where we officially learn that she is like the person from the beginning, and she's actually the voice that summoned us here. Even though Zero said something about summoning us here, that it was not him, it was the Queen, and that makes sense because I thought the Queen was a woman when I was playing the game, and I was like confused when Zero later on said like he summoned us here and gave us quests, because it wasn't, it was her. So okay, so and that she used Zekti's body because it contained like her spirit. Rain had something to do with that. Rain is the dark elf guy. So we discuss this with her and how Zekti can be a shrine maiden because she possesses the spirit of the queen who was the shrine maiden or something. Oh, no. It's because the Tower of Wind chooses who Shrine Maiden is, and all the towers do, I guess. And so if it chooses Zekti, it doesn't matter if she's like a real girl or not. And they talk a little about the wind and the shining wind. Get it? Because that's the name of the fucking game. Anyways. And that they're like, well, how do we know? And it's like, well, the King of Spirits has already chosen Zekti. And they're like, the King of Spirits, who's that? And it's that little creature that's been fucking around with us. And it's like, oh, and then he's like, poo-poo, right? Because it's like a mascot character. Anyway, Erwin is like, yeah, duh, did I not say that was the King of Spirits? And like, no, Erwin, you didn't fucking tell us that was the King of Spirits, you dumb, beautiful, sexy bitch. Anyway, Zekti gets all this like light stuff from like the spirit of the queen or whatever, so now she can fix the tower. And then we learn that Rain, who's the queen's brother, obviously, needs to be destroyed to stop the ancient artifact from coming to life, because he somehow is tied into it at this point, and he's being a real douchebag. So we promise to do that. We'll go stop him, whatever that means, most likely kill him, after we take care of this tower thing. And so the queen is super satisfied, and we move on over to the tower. Just like all the other towers, there's a bunch of like robot assholes here that are guarding it. And so we clear the tower, and then Zekti goes in and fixes it, restoring power to the world. So we go back to the audience chamber. We discuss how the dark energy has not stopped flowing. Oh no! Then there's talk about how the Shrine Maidens, specifically the Elven Shrine Maiden, along with the Heart of the Swordsman, are needed to activate the artifact. So we need Zekti, who's the Shrine Maiden, and her boyfriend, Kyria. Okay, since we have all the Shrine Maidens with us, the only Elven Shrine Maiden and the only Elven Shrine Maiden that's supposed to exist, they're very concerned that maybe Triheart did something weird. Also, Kyria wants to save Triheart and Hilda. So the whole thing, they just talk about like the Shrine Maidens and not being able to do it, but then there are Shrine Maidens or fake Shrine Maidens, or I don't know, the whole thing is kind of confusing. And I'm definitely missing something. Oh well. So Haumei says she's waiting in the conference room when we were ready. So we grab the soul gem for Zekti, and we head out to fight. We meet another strange elf girl with metal in her head. So apparently they did create like another elf chick. So we beat her, and she runs off. And she's exactly like Zekti used to be. She seems like a machine or whatever. So we go back to the conference room. We talk about the other elf. Her name is Eve. And someone mentions that she's an ancient weapon, just like Zekti kind of has an ancient weapon in her. And that she'll be extremely powerful when she fully wakens up, but she's not fully waken up yet. So we need to get to Hilda's lab so we can stop this from escalating. So we head north through the desert into an ice cave, run into Eve, beat her ass again. She hops up and attacks us, stopping right. Okay, so we beat her, and then we have like a little cutscene where she uses her like scythe to like try to kill us, but then right before she hits us, she stops and then disappears. So we head to Hilda's lab, and it's Witch Hilda. She's fighting something inside her, so we approach her, as does Soma, who pops up, and he mentions it's the Darkheart sword, just like with Leon and just like with Zekti and everything else. And so Soma helps us remove it, and then once it's removed, we fight the boss, which is the sword, and we freed, and then Hilda's freed for good. And I miss sexy Witch Hilda. I'm not gonna lie, because she's so fucking hot. Anyway. We discuss how Triheart is doing, and he's out looking for Rain, the brother of the Elf Queen, that was mentioned many a times, who took him and is using him. And so he went to go fight Rain, but apparently like he got captured by Rain, and then Rain is using Triheart as like the Soul Swordsman, and then Eve, who is like the Elf Shrine Maiden backup or whatever, to unlock the Black Tower, which contains the artifact which has the soul of the Fairy King or whatever. And so that's going to allow the madness to destroy everybody and whatnot. And this is kind of the continuation for what we learned about before. So for us to stop him, we have to get into the Black Tower. And to get into the Black Tower, we need like a core. Like what kind of core? So we need a core. These cores are found in the like giant destroyer monster robot thingies, the mobile fortresses. That's what they call them in this. So we have to go destroy a mobile fortress, or destroy several of these mobile fortresses, because there's a bunch on the move, I guess. And then one of them will get like a core, and then we can use the core back here at the tower to unlock it, so that we can get in and stop Rain finally and save Triheart. So that's what we go to do. So we go ahead and fight, destroy all the mobile fortresses. There's like 3 of them. And then we get the core from the last one. We take it back to the Black Tower. And inside, it's Tryhart, only he's attached like a giant fucking machine. And Soma and Hilda roll up at this point. Tryhart tells us to leave, that it's too late for him, that the thing's activated, that it's the end of the world, yada, 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 that Rain's already gone ahead. Kiria then is like, no, I will save you. And with his shonen protagonist powers, he is unable to push through the wiring or whatever. He gets knocked back by some force. And then Hilda, because she has the power of love, because she's in love with Tryhart, she's able to push her way through, which gets to Tryhart and destroys the machine. It also reveals that Hilda is Tryhart's holy grail. Yes, Holy Grail. You remember me talking about that at the very beginning of this episode of this video. It has come up, I think, not a single time until now. I think maybe it came up like one other time, very briefly. But if you don't remember from like however long this fucking video is, the Holy Grail is what we were told from the very, very beginning of the game we would use. From like the dwarfs were talking about it, I think, and how we had to utilize the Holy Grail to get back to like our world or something. Anyway, so the Holy Grail means he pulls out his like ultimate sword, which is like a light sword, like a lightsaber, only like a sword, right? And then we discuss how Rain is ultimately responsible for all this stuff and how he must be stopped, and then we all leave. Kiria head back to the audience room where Rowan and Jaume tell us that we need to prepare for the final battle, and they say it like 5 fucking times. Like, I don't know if that's just like the translation got stuck on Google, but it's like every other sentence was like, all right, time for the final battle. Make sure you prepare for the final battle, yada, 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 yada. Also, we can take our sweet-ass time because apparently Soma and Tryhart are just taking care of it for now. They're like holding back the dark forces, so there's like, they literally say there is no rush. At least that's, I like checked the translation a couple times, and it was like, yeah, that says don't worry about it, or like, you know, you're not in a major hurry or anything. So then it's like, okay, that's interesting. So then at this point, I'm like, all right, well, I read somewhere that there's like endings on this game, and it depends who you like max out their like soul pieces for or whatever. And originally I was going with Jaume because Loli, a fairy, which is hot. But then Zekti, being a sexy elf, like that's hard to resist. I'm not going to lie, as I mentioned previously. So I was like, oh, that was tough. But scantily clad elf babes, guess I'm going to have to go with that. So then we choose Zekti to do her thing. Okay, so what that means is that I go through and I collect all the soul pieces. So you find one of the soul pieces out in the world, and once you've activated like that first soul piece, you just talk to the girls, or I guess the guys too, technically, inside the headquarters, and they'll start handing you more soul pieces, and that's how you like, and then you collect like these orbs throughout the world where you're just like fighting and stuff. So you can like level everybody up to level like 4, but then you have to have that soul piece that you found to get to level like 5, which is the ultimate level, and you can only have one person at level 5, it seems. I didn't try it with anybody else because I was like, I'm good. I don't want to like mess this up and have to do it again. So Zekti is my true love, and then she comes with me to meet up with Soma and Tryhart. So this time we're investigating our own hearts, and we're standing around in like this final area, and it's got like three things that we can like stick swords into apparently, but we all need to access our holy grails and whatnot. And so to do that, first we have to go kill Rain, apparently. So we go and we get to Rain, who's that dark elf, right? And then let's Google Translate. Different people have been saying made this guy. Okay, yeah. At some point, someone was like, "This guy's dead," but I think that was just the Google Translate messing up. Anyway, so he's super mad, and then he gets consumed with dark energy. So we fight him, and then he runs off to merge with the Fairy King creature, the artifact Fairy King creature. In this like, well, first he turns into like, he goes into like this cocoon, and we fight the cocoon. So we fight him, then we fight the cocoon, and the cocoon explodes, and there's like this crazy butterfly looking thing with like eyeballs on its wings and stuff. And it's super creepy, not gonna lie. So we beat that ass, and then we see Rain laying down in the elf village, and Zekti walks up, and they talk about despair, and he says that he'll be alone watching the ancient artifacts. And then Celestia, who's the elf queen, I finally caught her name, right, says that it's not lonely defending the artifacts. And so, okay. This is another part where it's like, I read through the whole thing, and I was like, I don't quite understand what they're talking about. Like, so I'm going to try to piece it together. So I think Rain was upset because Celestia is all by herself guarding these ancient artifacts, and so he wanted to like free her from her burden by bringing the artifacts to life so that she could like go on, or that she could return or something, and that he was going to use Zekti to like shrine maiden it up to get to the Black Tower to like release the Fairy King so that she could be free. And then as he's dying, he's sad that she's going to be all alone. And then she mentions she's not alone. She has like the Spirit King and like the love of her people, the elves or something. And then he's super sad. And she doesn't mind that at all. Anyway, so we head back to Tryhard and Soma and crew, and they are concerned. They're sitting around concerned because Kyria has not returned, and it's time to seal this door with their ultimate swords that they got to get from their holy grails, right? So then Tryhard pulls his from Hilda again, and then Kyria shows up with Zekti. Oh, and I think this is why. Okay, so I think the person you do your 5 stars with or whatever, or the person you're with when you enter this final battle, I don't know. That's who you get your holy grail from. So my holy grail is Zekti because I love her and she loves me, even though the ending is like completely aromantical. We'll get to that in a minute. And so Hilda's in love with him, and they have like a super connection. So that's his holy grail. And then someone's like, I don't have a holy grail. And then him and Kyria have like a bro off, in that they're like, I love you, bro. I love you too, bro. You've always been there for me. You're my best friend. It's like very shonen protag anime, like with best friend buddy. And then Kyria's like, I'm your holy grail. And someone's like, you think so? And it's like, yeah, bro, bros for life, bros for hoes and all that stuff. And you don't like bitches anyway, apparently, because you just threw Kyria at me and she's a hot chick. And it's like, all right, that's a good point. So then he pulls the ultimate sword from Kyria, who is his holy grail. And then it's like, Kyria, who's your holy grail? And it's like, I have all these bitches, but Zekti, you're my number one bitch. So like, you're my you're my holy grail. And you're my holy grail because I want to rail that elf pussy. Yep. So we pull the sword out, and then we all jump into like this circle with the 3 things, and we seal the door. And then they talk about how the world is healing, and now they can all be friends and not be enemies anymore, and that they're going to work together to protect the world and help it prosper no matter where we are. And then the credits roll, and I was like, okie dokie, guess that's the end of the game. I guess I don't go back to the other world. But then after the credits is where you get like your holy grail ending, I guess. So we see Zekti, and this is Zekti and Jin's ending, and I say that because both Zekti and Jin are here, and I'm assuming if Jin had been like my BFF forever and he'd been my holy grail, he'd be the one here. So absolutely no romance, boys. I looked up a guide somewhere, and the Sheena and Kuria share an ending. So maybe if you go with them, they like you have like a harem or something. I don't know. Anyway. So we just see Zekti. She's trying to bring back the forest, the Elven forest, so the elves can return or something. And then Jin is just talking to Hilda and Tryhard about helping out and how it's nice of them to come help out. And they're like, well, it's kind of our fault. This kind of an asshole thing happened here. And it's like, oh, it's not really your fault, but it's nice for you to be here and stuff. And then we, as Kyria, just stand around with our thumbs up our asses, not doing shit all or talking to anybody. And we see Zekti trying to bring back... wait, say that. And then we see, the little fairy king, spirit king's there, and he's like, burr, burr, burr. And she runs over, it's like, oh, there's a bud growing already. And with the help of the spirit king, we'll be able to bring the forest back, and everyone will be happy. And that is the end. The game ends. There you go. So that was a trip. I hated having to translate with Google Translate, and I got 1, if not 2 more of these games to do. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to really handle that by translating. I didn't even translate like half the shit in this game, to be completely honest. Like all the little side stories and whatnot, I was just like, whatever, fuck it. So we'll see how it goes with that. It's also a Game Boy DS game, and I hate the Game Boy DS with all my heart. Like, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with the resolution. It's not even the emulators. Like, I had a Game Boy DS forever, and I played a bunch of games on it, and I'd get like headaches from looking at it because it's like this tiny ass screen. Like, I had a Game Boy. I've had all sorts of shit. I had a fucking watch that I played games on. Like, not like a fucking iWatch, like a little Ninja Gaiden watch from like 1982 or whatever. Like, I'm fucking playing bullshit games on there, and like nothing annoyed or like causes me more strain in my brain than fucking DS games. I hate them so much. I hate the dual screen. It is the worst. But I mean, we're here, we're doing it. So that's going to be a slog to power through. So we'll see how much translation I get of that. I might just try to like knock out the main story beats because these games get kind of wordy, and I don't know. I just can't imagine me being that excited about this game. I have heard nothing good about this game either. It's called Shining Force Feathers. I haven't heard anything like terribly bad either. It's like a game that exists. What's that thing the nerds say these days? They're like, it's a game of all time. That's what I've heard. It's just like, it exists. It's like a 6 out of 10. It's like playable. There's no problems with it. It's got a story with characters that are very cliche, and then it just like ends. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll see how much effort I put into actually like learning exactly what happens in the story instead of just like the main beats. But yeah, that's up in 2 weeks. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.